So if we want to maximize our effort on the hand release push-ups, right, we're going to break it down all the way from setup through each phase of the movement and then into common faults that we see, common errors that ruin people's maximum effort on their hand release push-ups. So let's start with the setup. We're working our way up the body. The first thing we're going to look for, your feet are allowed to be together or up to one shoe width apart. This is where I'm going to recommend that he brings his feet together as much as possible and squeezes them together. So by squeezing his feet together, it starts that chain of tension up his body to allow him to move as a single unit. So as he squeezes his feet together, he's going to squeeze his knees, squeeze his quads, engage his glutes, engage his core, again, to create that straight line before he even leaves the ground. So creating that tension starts at the feet. So working our way up the body, he's got that tension all the way up and through. So let's take a look at the next step, which is going to be his hand placement. So his hands are going to be as far back as he can reach them. So by moving those hands as far back as he can reach them, it really sets his shoulders down and back into the best position, allows those vertical forearms, so as he pushes away up off the ground, that power is going straight up compared to at an angle forward or back. So that nice vertical forearm starts with pulling his hands back into the best position. So also notice his fingers. His fingers are going to be splayed out. What that does allows him to maximize the use of muscles up in his forearms, provides the best balance for his body as well. So hand placement is key to starting your hand release push-ups. And the final piece we're going to look for is that head. So notice that his head is in that neutral position. It really creates that tension all the way, or really finalizes the tension all the way from foot to head. By maintaining that neutral head in downward position, it's that normal neutral spine compared to having an up, his head pointing up, which a lot of people are used to from the old APFT, loses that neutral spine. So head down is going to be key for the setup. So now that we've looked at the setup, let's talk about the 4 phases of movement. Phase 1 of the movement is going to be the upward phase of the movement. So during the upward phase of the movement, primary thing he's going to be focusing on is the external rotation of his shoulders. So what exactly does that mean? So by externally rotating, his right hand is going to move in a clockwise direction, his left hand is going to move in a counterclockwise direction, which really, in the end of the day, is going to set his shoulders into best position. So by doing that, his elbow pits are going to be facing forward, and his elbows are going to be together or along his sides or a maximum of 45-degree angle away from his body. And it all starts with that external rotation. So in order to show what that external rotation kind of looks like, let's take a look at it on the plates, right? So during this upward phase of the movement, he's going to rotate about his shoulders, but you can feel it in his hands. So he's really trying to split that ground apart by doing that. And by seeing the plates underneath, you can visualize what he's trying to do with the ground, but with the plates. It's that external rotation. So that's going to be your key during the upward phase of the movement. So again, we'll see that again. Now that you see the cue, he's using it with his hands to set his shoulders in the right place. That also maximizes the use of his chest, shoulders, and tricep muscles. So that gets him into the upward phase of the movement. Also, what he's going to focus on that he never left from the setup position is his feet are still squeezed together. His knees, his quads, his glutes, and his core still squeezed together, and that head is still neutral, allows him to move up as a crisp single unit. So let's talk about phase 2 of the movement. For those of you who are unfamiliar with phase 2 of the movement, it's the downward phase of the movement. So your cue here, again, he's still maintaining that tension throughout his body, but now we want to release or reduce the most amount of concentric movement during that downward phase. So he's going to make it as quick as possible and use gravity in his favor. He's essentially falling to the ground without hurting himself. So don't waste your time in trying to take that tension all the way to the ground in your upper body. What you're going to do is you're essentially going to fall and then not overload the concentric system by coming down. So save that effort by using gravity in this case. So that takes us to phase 2. Phase 3 is the arm extension portion of the push-up. So the way I like to strategize phase 3 is based on your intent. So there's 2 different intents, in my opinion, on a lot of soldiers. Either A, you want to max it, or B, you just want to get your minimum score to pass the thing. So let's talk about passing it during phase 3. So if you're just trying to pass it, what I want you to do is focus on maximizing your rest time while on the ground. So you have up to 5 seconds to show continuous effort on the ground. So when you're on the ground during phase 3, extending your hands, take your time with it before you bring them back in. By taking your time, it allows you to establish a good position before you return back up. So take your time, bringing it in, check in on your tension, you're squeezing your feet together, you're squeezing your quads and your glutes and your core while extending back up. So let's talk about the people who want to max the thing, right? So 60 repetitions gets you the maximum score. As you can see here, you're going to have to move quick in order to do that. So as you move out quickly, make sure you get that good lockout during your quick extension. I see a lot of times kind of that half wing, chicken wing in it. You want to make sure you get full extension if you want your reps to count. That's phase 3. Phase 4, our main principle here, we're going to check back in on our tension, make sure we're squeezed all the way through. But now we want to maximize that muscle elasticity. So by maximizing our muscle elasticity, we're going to essentially punch the ground as we come through. So notice he slightly lifts his hands up and really drives them into the ground as he comes back up. And that phase 4 is basically your hands are moving back into the initial starting position. So to muscle elasticity, another way to think about it is like during a squat, right? If I take a squat down, pause at the bottom, and then come back up, that's harder than me coming down using muscle elasticity to come back up. So it's an easy way to think about it. The next thing I want to talk about during phase 4 of the movement is checking in on that hand placement as well. His hands are going to be nice and far back, and his fingers are going to be splayed just like this setup position. So that takes us through our 4 phases of the movement. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the only authorized rest position is going to be the front leaning rest. There's ways to maximize your rest in the front leaning rest. So I'm going to keep cueing in on this principle to maintain tension throughout your body. And this is key when it's front leaning rest. So he's going to squeeze together his feet, his quads, his glutes, his core, working his way up the body. Where he's really going to save a lot of his energy is that external rotation of his hands. Super exaggerate it here. Allow your shoulders to set into that natural position down and back. That's going to allow you to rest, your chest, shoulders, and tricep muscles so you can knock out more rests. So as you're up in the front leaning rest, I really want you to focus on driving these elbow pits forward, externally rotating those hands out, setting in a good position. So as you can see, he's in good position now. Let's take a look at crappy position where he loses that tension. So now what he's doing, he's loading all that weight up on his rotator cuff and up in his upper part of his shoulders, and that just doesn't look right, as you can tell. So set up in a good front leaning rest position, maintain that tension throughout, and you'll actually save a little more rest during the rest position.